Hey everyone, I'm Nick DiMatteo and welcome to week 209 and video episode number 35 of Music is Not a Genre. Each week I take a release from my collection, I discuss it, I give you my take on it, I throw in some other interesting tidbits and find ways to connect it to other kinds of music, to my music, and to other things in life. If you like this podcast or any of my podcasts or live shows or anything else, recorded music on this site, please take a moment to pause this video and subscribe. It would mean a whole lot to me to be connected with you and to have you subscribe. And moreover, if any of these are things you think other people might be interested in, if I'm discussing a certain band and you're like, oh my God, I'm not really into this, but my cousin is into this, or anything like that, please think about sharing these videos, whether it's a podcast, I'm talking about an idea about music, a type of music, an artist, or a show that I do, a concert, originals and covers and everything like that. Please, subscribing and sharing mean a whole lot to people who do what I do. So thank you very much for taking that moment, and thank you as always for being here. This week, we are living in House's house. We're talking about house music, and in particular, Chip E. Inc. featuring Kay Joy's classic Like This from 1985. Let me start off by saying house music is not in like my top 10 favorite types of music, and I'm smiling when I say top 10 because I have a podcast coming out on Saturday that talks about top 10 lists and how they're kind of bullshit. But I respect it. I like it, and I like certain aspects of it. You know, the reason why house isn't my favorite is because there's a certain. I wrote a song that my band Rec is releasing in a month or two on the next EP called "The Power of Repetition, Everlasting," and really part of what it does is explain how much I love the idea that repetition in so many forms, whether it's pop music, postmodern, classical, things like that, and even just emphasis when you're speaking about something, think of 100 different ways, is so important. But it's the type of repetition that makes a difference for different kind of people. So the way house repeats certain themes and things like that, the large majority of it, that's really not, is not for me. Some of it is. But there are other types of EDM, electronic dance music, that has the certain type of repetition that also includes a lot of layering, a lot of texture, that is kind of more my jam, and that's, you know, and that's cool. Everybody's got their own, you know, feel and you know, things that they're drawn to. The reason why I'm mentioning it in this context is because of my assertion here that we are now all living in House's house. And so, you know, what do I mean by that? Electronic music's been around for a pretty long time now. It's been around for decades. It's been popular for almost as many decades. And there's a lot of music that uses electronic elements, or it's built electronically, that would not be considered EDM, electronic dance music, because it's not dance music. You know, or let's say music that has nothing at all to do with the electronic music field uses some type of electronic instruments, the way a lot of Prince songs did, or even honestly, a lot of rock bands who would throw in, you know, like keyboards and things like that. That's electronic, right? But house it's a very particular type of not just electronic music, but a very particular type of electronic dance music. So I have this 12-inch because I was a DJ when it came out. And I honestly don't remember why I was drawn in particular to this song. Somebody might have suggested, hey, you have to get this, you know, whatever that may be. It might have been in a bin with some others that the dude at the store was like, here's some things you want to buy if you're a DJ and you're, you know, mixing good stuff for people to dance to or whatever. But that's why I have it, right? And it's because I love music you can dance to. You can call it dance music, but some music I dance to isn't even really honestly dance music. I think dancing's kind of an essential part of life, and so I think that dance music in all its forms is an essential part of life. Whatever kind of dance music, you know, or music you like to dance to that you are into, you know. House is interesting, what I loved discovering when I researched this, because it stemmed from the disco era, which was not the first time that dance music existed. It was not the first time that people mixed records, for a live audience in order for them to dance to stuff. Dancing's been around since probably as long as music has been around. I think the invention of rhythm, however many hundreds of thousands of years ago that was, or um, it probably came fairly soon after the invention of music itself, if not before. I think because we have our internal rhythms, hearts and other body rhythms and things like that. Rhythm is kind of a part of existence in a way that even I think deeper than melody and other stuff like that. So I think that dance is kind of inherent in really just the act of breathing and existing, right? Deep, that's deep. So, but let's get back to disco. So disco is hugely popular. It's the first time that something strictly called dance music was, well, that's not true either, was famous. I mean, you can go back, but you can go back to jitterbug and things that happened in the earlier part of the last century. And so every so often, a form of dance music will become popular. Go back to the 19th century or before, and you have the gavotte, and that wasn't just a dance. There were songs written specifically to be danced to in that style, which, as we know, the Lindy, which was an early dance, 20s, I guess, 30s, or the hustle from the 70s, and all of that. There's music that is geared towards certain types of dances, etc. So all that is saying that dance music is very important. It's been around for a very long time. Disco was when I think it kind of took over the top 10 in a lot of ways. Top 10. And it moved on from there. And the way it moved on was certain rock bands actually took on disco beats, and that became kind of post-punk and new wave and stuff like that. But then other bands took it even further and adhered to the kind of strict dance, four on the floor and certain breaks and 8 or 16 or 32 bars and stuff like that, and a breakdown and a build up and a drop in and a pop in and all that stuff, and did it using electronic instruments. And house was not the first type of electronic dance music or music that was electronic that you could dance to, but it was one of the first that was clearly made just for that reason, and musically speaking, right? And but that wasn't the only reason. So one of the great things about disco, and when I was a kid, you couldn't love both disco and rock or whatever, and one hated the other and all that bullshit, right? So in hindsight, it's just like any other type of music. There are good songs and bad songs. Songs you like, songs you don't like. Doesn't matter what the style is. There's not one great and bad style or good style. Styles are styles, right? There's skins that cover the the core of the heart of the music, whatever that may be. That's why covers of songs that are in a different style from the original still work if the song itself is good. It's the song. The song serves all, and I want to talk about that in a future podcast. I've mentioned it before, but in greater detail, I'd like to talk about it. But disco was, it spurred from African American music and Latino music and the gay LGBTQ community, and all of that came together to create a type of music that could be enjoyed en masse in a club at a place that was inclusive of everyone. Hopefully, I mean, you can talk about Studio 54 and all that crap about you can't get in at the door or whatever, and that still happens today. But the whole idea behind that was inclusivity, was a place for people to go who felt like they were outcasts or who weren't accepted by a greater society. And House took that on. House took that on in a huge way. That's what I discovered, is House was kind of known for that. And it was named for a place in Chicago called the Warehouse, or we think that's what it was named for, which shut down 77 to 83, so it was a disco, I guess, and beyond. And people still wanted to hear that music, and other clubs opened, but they associated it with that club in particular. So there were record stores that would say, as heard at the Warehouse, or and they shortened it to as heard at the House. And this is music you'd hear at the House. This is house music. You can see the evolution of that. So that's where scholars think the idea, the name came from. And Chip E was one of the pioneers of that, right? And so he was part of that group of people who, A, liked dance music. B, liked electronic music. C was a little innovative in terms of the way they would use samples or some cutting and scratching or some, again, repetitive things, and key phrases that a singer would repeat, over and over, maybe just a handful of phrases for each song. It was a different way of conceptualizing what a written song might be and things like that, right? And he was also part of that community, and his friends and the people he knew, of people who wanted to feel like they had a place to go, to feel like they had a family. And I mean, that's kind of one of the great things about music in general, and something that I don't think we're missing now. We're missing in some ways, certainly live, but I think we're finding other ways around that, online, to find our communities, to find our ways to connect through music. Certainly, the shows that I do and that Catherine and I do every week on Facebook and here on YouTube, which is one thing you can see every week if you subscribe. Are a way to connect. And again, it's all through music. And I've said before that the whole point of music is connection, really, expression and connection, right? And so, I'm looking at my notes here. That's why, even though house is not my favorite, it's still important. And I've found that to be the case with other artists too. You can think of Madonna or Rihanna or I don't know, Calvin Harris or Daft Punk. And there are times where what they did was not house music. It was many, many other different things. But there was a lot of what they did that was influenced by house music at one point or another. And it just shows, and because house music is built using electronic, instruments, programming, etc., repetition, a funky beat, etc., etc., that's why I'm saying we're living in house's house now, because the vast majority of what we hear on the radio or whatever we're listening to on our streaming services is electronic music. And a great portion of that is electronic dance music. It's influenced me as well. It's influenced a lot of the music I've done. I was doing electronic music from the very beginning of my career and straight up until today. In fact, when my band Rec was born, in the idea that rock music and electronic music could merge and become, its own thing. It's why I classify my music, Rec's music, as a progressive electro power pop. That word electro in there, is kind of the key. And in fact, since Rec's album Distance to Empty, which you can find here on this site and on the Rec YouTube page, or from the Rec YouTube page, almost all of my music has been electronic in one way or another, including the song I'm going to recommend that you listen to this week, which is Rec's new single, All Kinds of Right, the Highway 28 song, featuring Catherine Lynn on vocals. From the very beginning of the song, you're going to hear house. I don't even need to explain it. Click the link and listen to the beginning of the song. You're like, okay, that's house. But then, as it goes on, you'll see how it was just influenced by that. There's more to it than that, because that's just how I roll. That's how I create songs. Do you know house music? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Do you know it stemmed out of Chicago and kind of the history of it? Do you like house music? Are you into any kind of electronic dance music? Are you into any of the artists I mentioned before who have been influenced by house, and the hundreds and thousands of other artists who have been influenced by house? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. I want to hear your comments, whether you like or don't like, or agree or don't agree. I want us to continue to keep this conversation going, because, as always, other than the music, my objective here is conversation and connection. Please take a moment to subscribe and to share if you know somebody who might be interested in this. Subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for clicking and subscribing and sharing. And I will see you next week.